Thanks for staying with us for TV5 News at 9. It is time now for Aging in Style with Vitale Wealth Management. Joining us now is the president and owner, Joe Vitale. We appreciate you being here.
Good morning.
We want to remind everyone, too, that you can get Joe's newsletter, really helpful information, financial vitals for all of the latest in-market trends and financial news. You can scan that QR code right there now on your screen to get access to that. And today we are talking about Dave Ramsey's Smart Steps. You know, whether it's a high-yield savings account, maybe a low-fee investment option. You're going to take us through some of these tools that can also help put the steps in action for us. So let's start with creating an emergency fund. It's easier than most people might think.
It really is. You know, Dave Ramsey has these 7 steps. They call them baby steps for those who need to get into it. And the biggest thing is you don't want to bite off too much at a time. So the first step is emergency fund. Everybody says, oh my gosh, to have $1,000, is it that impossible to do? Well, sometimes it is really difficult to get it, but you need it because that's what it's for, an emergency fund. Then somebody has, and then we've had people say, well, I've got my $1,000, I've got it, I want to invest it. No, you're not going to invest it. That is an emergency fund for emergencies. So just leave it there because anything happens. How many times we need to put brakes on a car or something happens and oh my gosh, this is a big expense. You need that all the time.
Well, we should talk about what about paying off all debt and then how does that impact the fund?
Well, that's how the baby steps. So that you do the envelope system. And one of the ways is if you've got a lot of debt, well, I remember back 35 years ago, we had debt. You know, who hasn't,
sure,
right? Especially, I mean, well, my girls, thankfully, I taught them the steps, so we're trying to, that they don't have it. But we got in the credit card problem where it's like, okay, finally, we were able to just, we started just paying off one at a time. We would put the highest interest, we would put more towards it, get rid of that one, then go to the next one, then go to the next one. And there's a way to get it where one after another, just break them down and pay them off. And then before you know it, through little simple baby steps, you're out of debt. And what a wonderful feeling that is.
I love that. Now, when we talk about creating an emergency fund, everybody says, oh, I'll have 6 months in savings. That is not easy for people.
Not easy at all. But it's as you get to that point, what you find is once you get to $10 or $20 or $30,000 or $40,000 in the bank and on hand or stashed, you almost have that comfort where if you dip below that, you almost break out in hives, you know, where you gotta have that comfort because that 3 to 6 months is so important. I've seen so many families where they lose a job, a big thing happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, now how am I gonna redo this? I wasn't planning on spending that $30,000. What am I gonna do now? So that's a huge piece of everything. We have to have that emergency fund, and it's kind of a hard balance, as we'll talk about, is how do you invest and how do you do that? That money's sitting there, but it's not invested. Put it in a money market, put it in something that can make a little bit of interest, right? But in the meantime, that money needs to be there for peace of mind and to make sure after all the debt's paid off, it's just such a great thing to do.
And so you recommend 6 months?
I like 6 months for sure, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, how much of an investment into retirement do we need to be making as well?
Well, Ramsey says 15%, right? And that's the biggest thing is even if, now here's the biggest thing, even if you're not out of debt, even if you still don't have the emergency fund, but you've got an offer of a free match 401k at work, take advantage of that free match. If they've got a 4 or a 5 or a 6% match, at least do the 3, 4, 5, 6% match because that's free money you don't want to throw away. But that's it. And then work on getting rid of the debt because if you're paying 25% interest on these credit cards, you're going to be way behind if you don't pay off the debt first.
Okay.
And that once you do that, now you're able to get up to 15% investments in your 401k or your Roth. So you want to be able to do that. And a lot of times, depending on the tax brackets, we're going to say maximize the 401k, but any extra, put it into a Roth. We need that tax-free money going. Or if your 401k has Roth provisions, put it into the Roth. Unless you're really, really high wage earner, but usually, especially when you're just starting out, you want to make sure that you can do Roth is a lot better because then you're paying tax on this much and it grows to this huge, you know, tax-free bundle of money.
Nice. Now, what about parents wanting to save money for kids for college?
Very important, very important. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You know, Michigan's got a program. You've got a great strategies where you can put it in and the kids can take it off tax-free or, you know, deferred. But what I did for mine too is for my grandkids now, is I just every month put $100 away. Every month put $100, and I put it in my daughter and my granddaughter's name. So if anything happens, it's theirs. So if they don't go to college or if they go to a trade school or for whatever, they can use it for whatever at that point. And I like to have the freedom of that, but even just a little bit, do $50 a month, do 25, just do something. That compounds like crazy and you don't realize over time.
I love that. Now, should people try to pay off their home early, and how would they go about that?
A big fan of that, as a matter of fact. I think, of course, Dave Ramsey's a huge fan of that. He says, everybody do not buy a house unless you can buy it for cash. Great strategy. A little hard to do today with a minimum price of $400,000 or what have you. But especially if, here's the biggest thing too, a lot of my clients, they say, well, Joe, my house is not paid off. You said to pay off the house. Well, your interest rate's 2.5. Don't worry about it in that respect. We're making a lot more than 2.5 right now. So let's just keep the mortgage for right now, because it's just smart money, it's smart debt, and we're making a lot better. If you're paying 5, 6, 7% rate of return, I always want to kick out the high rate of return, get those paid off first. The house is the last thing to go, especially if it's at a low interest rate, you know. But yeah, there is a freedom in being able to have no debt in the house and everything paid off.
All right, and how about giving back? How can we build wealth and also...
Yep. Well, as Dave Ramsey says, we're gonna live like nobody else. So as you get older, you're gonna give and live like nobody else. Because once all the debt's gone, and once you're able to compound your money, and once you're able to live, you know, you got all this nest egg of money, you're able to live and give. So you're able to give more. You're able to give more to family, church, friends, charities, and it's a great feeling, you know, and you're able to live without worrying about it. So
that should be a goal. Are the steps the same for retirees as for when you're just getting started? You know, because there are people that get to retirement and unfortunately have not been able to save.
Yeah, some of it is. The other part of it is in retirement. Dave Ramsey also has a philosophy where you got 25, 25, 20, like 25% in small cap, mid cap, large cap, international as far as investments are concerned. And so people in retirement, they say, well, Dave Ramsey says this. Listen, when you're in retirement, it's a different ball game. You can't have that risk that you can have when you're 25 years old. You have the shorter time horizon, so we have to change the strategies a little bit. But also, I still believe that it's a good strategy to go into retirement with no debt. If you've got no debt in retirement, but if there is some debt, I work with my clients on let's get rid of it first. Let's work on this, this, and this, and then we're in good shape.
And bottom line is you're saying have a strategy and
have
start
that strategy.
small.
Oh my gosh. You know, what's the old adage? How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
And that's it. Don't get overwhelmed. Do a little bit at a time, and before you know it, the snowball, the compounding effect, it works beautifully.
Atomic habits. All right. We appreciate you being here. And again, before we let you go, do get those market updates. Get that information through that financial newsletter, Financial Vitals. If you want also more information on this and how to save and get ahead, go to the Aging in Style page at WNEM.com. We're back in a moment.